G'day guys, welcome. It's Tuesday morning, 8:30. By the time this is uploaded, it might be a little bit later. This should be a window, really, for doing a review. Maybe not a window for a grand final review, if we get there. But a semi-final review, it should have already been done. But here we go. The reason why I'm a little bit slower on this is because I put the vlog out, the game day vlog, and I made sure in that game day vlog that I was doing quarter by quarter, I suppose, feelings of how we were going and through the game as well. So if you haven't watched that yet, watch my game day vlog, because I did speak at length about certain things that were happening throughout the game. And I'm glad I did that. But at the same time, your emotions get the better of you. And sometimes you don't necessarily read the game that well when you were there, because you're just riding everything so much. And I really needed to watch this game again for the enjoyment factor, obviously. I did watch the highlights quite a bit after Friday night, but I sat down on Sunday evening and watched the game in full. And I know a lot of you out there didn't have the opportunity to go and watch this game live, but rest assured it came up unbelievably on the TV, on the broadcast. It did it justice. But there were so many things that, obviously, when you're at the game, that you lose when you don't see things close up, and TV gives you the opportunity to see that, the vision, and you can replay things, etc. But I don't know. It's almost like it's Tuesday now, and it's almost like time has stood still over the last 4 or 5 days. And I went to the open training session yesterday, but this. I can't describe the way. It's very, very hard to describe this feeling at the moment. It's like it's going in slow motion, and I don't know how the player. I've got no idea about how the players must be feeling, but they'd be having, obviously, psychologists working with them and an experienced coach, and they'd be just now tunnel vision towards Brisbane at the Gabba on Saturday, but us fans, we're a different beast. And I don't know, it's just like everything's just sort of stopped. It's stopped. And this one's really affected me in a different way. And I know it's not a grand final. It's not a grand final. But I know the 99 prelim final goes down in folklore. And even, I suppose, the 2013 elimination final to a certain extent. But this one, this game is now etched in Carlton folklore, and it's so deep inside my temporal lobe, where those really good memories are stored, and even the bad ones as well. And being somewhat of a pessimist at times, I think my temporal lobe doesn't have a lot of storage in there for things that are I don't know, good or positive. So for this one has really affected me. Like it's done something to me, which it's got a hold of me. It really has. And I know it's not a grand final. It's not a grand final. It's not. But it's fucking got me. It got me at the game, and it's got me even now. I don't know over the next couple of days, when I do the preview of the Brisbane game coming up, whether I've settled down a bit. And I have settled down. I'm not like jumping up and down. There's just this real calmness and like this gratification and this just feeling content with this club is at and what it's provided us supporters. Yeah. So that's the way I'm feeling, and from a game perspective, Melbourne were just such a quality opponent, and they fucking hit us with everything early in that game, and they were so good, and they were everything that I thought they would be, and maybe even a little bit better. And I know that probably Melbourne supporters may disagree with that, and the thing about that, before I do go on, the reason why this one, I feel, for me, is a little bit different as well compared to, say, the Sydney win last week and what we've been able to do in the second half of the season and all those big wins we did have along the way to this one, is that even the haters, and this is such a tribal sport, like football's so fucking tribal between the clubs, but particularly the big clubs. And I was, in 2016, because I'm from the West, and there's so many Western Bulldogs supporters here in the West, and a lot of my close friends are Western Bulldog supporters. And when they were on that roll in 2016 and having all those fucking wins, those wins of substance, and I know that's been a word that I've used regularly, I don't know, when they were getting towards there, I was hating on them a little bit, because I was so, probably jealous, but I was hating on them, and doubting them. Oh, the umpires are on their side, or this and that, they're not that good. But it got to the point when with that Western Bulldogs team, maybe it was when they won that prelim final against the Giants, that I just suddenly sat back and just went, fuck. This team is pretty fucking special. And I got the sense, even with the haters, just on social media, and there will still be some haters, and that's great. I don't necessarily get into the banter side of things, and there'll always be banter, but I just felt there was this overwhelming, not so much support. We don't expect neutrals to be really supporting us, but there was just this overwhelming sense that we, as a team and as a club and this group of players, had done something fucking extraordinary. And not just that game, but just everything leading up to that. And it was like just reading people's comments, from different supporter bases, even Collingwood, just going, fuck, that was an unbelievable game of football. That was one of the best finals I've ever seen. And, fuck, how did you guys do that? That was just, So that to me said this is pretty fucking special. But just getting back to the game, I'm mentioning that Melbourne was so bloody good. Particularly early, and then they came again in that third quarter, halfway through, and there was so many ebbs and flows in this game. They had momentum early, and they hit us with everything they had, and then that mini fight back we had at the back end of the first quarter which I thought was really pivotal. Even being at the ground at the time, I thought was such a good response by us. Then to get away in that second quarter, and once again, the second quarter for us has been a real strength this year. It was against the Swans the week before, and it had been consistently throughout season 2023. We came early in the third, they hit back and then controlled that third quarter really, and probably had an opportunity to really make it difficult for us, but they left the door open for us, and full credit to us. We got off to a pretty bloody strong start. And that was consistent really after quarter time. We had strong starts to quarters, and then they would hit back really hard, and then they dominated in that last quarter for big parts. But then we owned it really. And that's the point I want to get to next, because I want to go back to what Voss said in his press conference before the semi-final, and he specifically said we will need to be at our best. And I mentioned this in my preview. I touched on it, but then he went on to say we need to be at our absolute best to beat them. And I really wanted to reflect on that, because were we at our best? Now, you probably make an argument that we weren't across the whole game, but this is such a pressure cooker situation. And there were so many mistakes made early in that game on our behalf, and we didn't quite handle the heat. But that happens. That fucking happens. That happens to the, that happens in a final. And they were so strong around the ball, and they were taking the corridor on, and we were trying to defend. But we were at our absolute best in moments, in times, in periods in this game. We were. And it was no doubt Melbourne were at their absolute best in times and in periods in that game. And that's why it was such a classic and epic contest. And to just probably, I don't know, what I'm trying to say is even in those moments where we weren't playing that well, we were still holding on, and we weren't letting them get away from us. And I know they probably kicked themselves out of it at times, but we were never out of this game. We were still defending strongly. We were still holding on. And that's where you need to be, I suppose, at your best. But the moments are the things I want to talk about here, because the two things that stick out for me are the first goal we kicked to the game and the last goal we kicked to the game, and those two specific plays, because the TDK goal, and he kicked two in a row within a minute. And fuck, that was exciting. Oh my God, that was exciting. TDK as well, like, he's not a renowned goal kicker. I spoke before the game about we will need to get someone. I don't know how we win this game without Charlie kicking at least 4 or 5, but he kicked one. So we got the goals from Motlop. We got the goals from TDK, which became really significant in this game. We got 2 from a midfielder in Sam Walsh. There you go, right there. We made the most of those half chances, those opportunities inside our forward 50, and we kept Melbourne to only 53 inside 50s compared to what they were able to produce the week before. That was pretty good. So that, from a statistical point of view, this game was pretty even across the board. But those two passages of play which led to that first goal to TDK was as, I'd say, beautiful football. Well, it sort of was, because it's a big final. We were under pressure in that first quarter, and for Akers to kick down the line to Cripps, and then for Cripps to have penetration in his kick to get it to TDK, who had Bowie one out, and then for TDK to go back and settle himself on a 45-degree angle and kick the ball straight through the middle. We don't necessarily see Cripps and Akers kick with that much penetration. We just don't. And those balls, we just opened Melbourne up, and it just gave us that opportunity, a perfect play at a perfect time, and just got us into the game and gave us some belief. And then obviously that last goal to Akers, and the build up to that, the pressure on Viney on his opposite side. He didn't seize the moment. And how many times have we seen that with our team in the past, where we didn't seize the moment, where we maybe had someone who maybe just panicked a little bit under pressure, but it was us who were able to be calm in the most crucial moment, really, of the game. And for Wiedering just to swivel, pivot, get his head looking in the middle of the ground and hit up Ollie Hollins, an 18-year-old. Is he 19 yet? But came on as a sub. And for him to turn quickly, knowing that there probably wasn't a hell of a lot of time on the clock, and Doc, who had a dislocated shoulder, to outmark the youngster, and then to seize that opportunity. Akers had pushed forward. Oh man, it was just it was such the perfect play. So in a nutshell, that's the thing that defined this game. And I know Melbourne had their chances, but they weren't, I don't know, I don't know. Like, when you win by 2 points, you're analysing a game. And if we lost by 2 points, I might be analysing this a hell of a lot different to the way I'm analysing it now. But those, even the Kennedy goal at the start of the third quarter was off the back of the lowering of the eyes from the skipper. You know, like he just hit him up, and then for Kennedy to go back and kick that goal. It was a perfect play. Under pressure, under heat. And we just own those moments. We also had those little half chances, getting the hand in, the smothers late in that game, the fucking smothers. To get the ball, and TDK, a guy over 200 centimetres, to bend over and pick that ball up and get it to Kennedy. And then I still thought there was like 20 seconds on the clock when Melbourne were kicking in from full back after that point to Kennedy. I didn't realise the siren was going to go there. That's why it was so good, because I didn't realise. I thought there was another 20 seconds to go. So that's my review with the game as such. What I will do is I'll go through the players as I usually do. I'll go in number order. I thought Motlop was crucial. 4 tackles. He was off early, but he was on. That doesn't make sense. He was on because he was getting his hands on the ball. He was getting in the right spots, but he was coughing it up. And after not touching it the week before, when he came on as the tactical sub and not getting his hands on the ball, for him to be able to lift himself after a poor start and kick 2 crucial goals, that beauty in the second quarter, from exactly the same spot, mind you, to get away from his direct opponent at the punt road end. Full credit to him. Chera, just busy. Just did his job. The good thing is he's playing, I reckon now, he'd be playing such a pivotal role for us for the whole season. He was the one that's been carrying us for the whole season. Now he's just playing a rock-solid role through that midfield. I thought he was just really solid. Kennedy was just off. He just looked off the pace for pretty much the whole night he kicked a really important goal, but he also set up a few as well, had a couple of goal assists and just some really important moments in the game. It's going to be a really interesting one to see whether he holds on based on that game and just the speed. He looked off a little bit with the speed of the game. He lost his feet a couple of times. But he still had 13 disposals, playing predominantly as a forward. Yeah. Fogarty, I thought he was superb. I actually thought Fogarty was in our best, I'm not going to say top 6 players, but maybe top 8. He was so influential, and watching the replay again, he was involved in a lot of plays, really important plays. He only had the 4 tackles, but he had, I think, 3 goal assists. He just seemed to be involved at the right time. Thought he was super. Cripps was just huge. Just kept going and going. He had one of those days where he just kept getting hit. Bang, smack, in the nose, back of the head. Loved his aggression early in the game on Salem and a few others who were trying to throw their weight around. He came in and really exerted his physicality. Oh, fuck. The look on his face when the final siren sounded, his eyes are like fucking popping out of his head. Like, just good on him. Like, fuck. Just good on him. And he didn't have the best game the week before against the Swans, and this one he really lifted for the occasion. McGovern was pretty good. I thought our defence was rock solid, for the most part. At times we're getting into this position where I don't mind them backing themselves, but I think Kemp can be a little bit of a serial offender with this. But they're trying to mark the ball from behind a lot instead of killing the contest. But I thought McGovern had some really important times in this game and was really good. DeConning, as good a first half that you'd see from a big man playing that sort of that forward role going into the ruck. He was so influential. And I kept thinking about DeConning as well when I was watching the replay about what his younger brother sort of achieved at Geelong last year. and the disappointment of the end of our season. And the Conning didn't play late in the year for us, did he? I know he was dropped for the Collingwood game, the last game of the year, but I'm pretty sure he didn't play in that Collingwood game. He might have played in the VFL that game because they did the curtain raiser. And there was a lot of vision of Tom with his brother after the grand final in the rooms, celebrating with, not celebrating, but celebrating with his brother. And he copped a little bit of flack for that. And I sort of watched him and the impact he's making this year and signing with the footy club and you know, he mightn't get a medallion. I mean, nothing's guaranteed, but his brother will be watching him now, you know, like Sam would be watching him and he's really stepping up. He's like fucking like, he's having such an impact, which is great. We really needed him to have a really good game, and he did. Acres, he only had 17 touches, and just to look at him, look at the pain he must be in at the moment. And I'm not going to go on whether he should be playing against the Lions. I'll get to the preview later on and all that type of stuff. But 2 goals at 2 important times, just in the right positions, tough, strong. He was fucking tough and strong, like in the contest, even fucking Neil Bullen, who I really rated Neil Bullen as a footballer. But watching Neil Bullen, I know, you know, I sort of like ball players, to be perfectly honest. I like really tough players. But just fucking targeting someone's shoulder like Neil Bullen was, fuck you. Like, fuck off, you little fucking rat. You know, I lost a bit of respect for Neil Bullen, to be perfectly honest. I know it's open slather, and you go out there and you go out there and blokes can target you, but just the way he was doing it, he wasn't necessarily doing it in play. He was doing it off the ball. And fuck you, Neil Bullen. So full credit to Akers for what he did in that game. Ollie Hollands had some big moments. Obviously, the setup to Doherty and then the late tackle on Lockie Hunter was huge. Hunter had him cold. He had the kid cold. And, lunging tackle, important late. Doherty, dislocated shoulder, came on. Couple of intercept grabs, set up that goal. Just, fuck, what can you say about this bloke? What can you say? Look, Kemp was, he's an interesting player, Brady Kemp. I fucking love him. At times he can be a little bit frustrating, and look, we're playing his own defence, and the beauty about being beyond the goals, you do watch how the way us defenders sort of set up, and most clubs will play at certain times his own defence. You know, they'll have someone sag off, and they'll be a little bit from their opponent, but I don't know. He does get beaten a bit. And it's probably an area of his game he'll continue to work on. But fuck, he just doesn't. He's so brave, like with his. He's so confident. He's such a confident player. Although he did some really good things, amongst some things that he didn't do quite well. But that's footy, and that's probably the age he's at, and he must be growing significantly in this final series. And he was another one that was right at the pointy end there in the goal square. Well, was it McGovern, Kemp and Akers in the goal square where that final goal was scored? I think it was. What the fuck were they doing down there? Sam Walsh. Oh, fuck. Wow. Just wow. I think that the possessions are one thing. But it's the goals. And it's something that's sort of went out of his game a little bit. His ability to hit the scoreboard. And they were big. I mean, any goals in finals, but running goals and being able to execute, which we did. You know, this game was about execution under pressure. He was, yeah. And the good thing about this game is he was still running on top of the ground, but he didn't have a huge impact late. And the other guys stood up then. You know, your Hewitts and Cherries and other blokes underneath him stood up. He'd done all the heavy lifting early in this game, right the way through. But yeah, Marchbank, a little bit the same as Kemp. You know, they're just a fucking brave carry. They're so brave. They're so brave. He was good, really good again. Wiedering was huge. He was huge. I mean, Tom McDonald was putrid. I mean, I got it wrong at the game. I did say at 3/4 time that McDonald had gone into the ruck and Corn had gone forward and given him a bit up forward, and McDonald had given him a bit of bite around the ball. But watching the replay, he hadn't. He was fucking dreadful, and he probably should have been subbed out of the game because Wiedering and Co took him to the cleaners, and Wiedering was huge, just fucking massive. Newman, that's as good a second quarter I've seen in a final. His ability to read the play behind the ball and just everything he touched turned to gold. He's having that. He's having that year. I think I mentioned this a few weeks back that if, and it's a big if we do go on to win the premiership, you'll look back at this year by Nick Newman. You'll look back at that year. It would be that year. And he's been a very, very consistent player for us and a good player for us. But this is something out of the box from Nick Newman. It really is. 631 metres gained, 30 disposals. Pitnet had the go on anything he did a lot, but just watching the replay, he just did not leave Max Gawn alone. And I know Gawn ended up with 17, and it could have been a completely different story if he kicked those 2 goals, let's face it. So we would have been talking about a 17 disposal game or a 20 disposal game, whatever it is, from Max Gawn, and 2 goals from your ruckman. So, but Pitnet just fucking annoyed him. He didn't allow him to take those grabs down the line or whatever it was, and he was just on him all the time, just on him, and just pressured him and worked him over. Will that be a similar strategy to Oscar McInerney? I think Oscar McInerney probably plays a similar role to Gawn, although not as skillful and as impactful. But yeah, thought Cunningham was poor. I thought he was poor. Felt there's 2 weeks in a row now that he just hasn't been able to impact. Difficult role to play, understand all that, but he just overran the ball and he just couldn't get involved. I know he got his hands on it a little bit here and there, but just, yeah, subbed out. His place in the team might be in jeopardy for the game against the prelim final against Brisbane. Is it been such a big second half of the year for David Cunningham? Missed a lot of footy. Is it all catching up with him? Who knows? He didn't do the training yesterday. He was in the rehab group. Maybe he's a little bit sore. George Hewitt, just solid, important moments. Just that playing that sort of secondary role at the moment, which is really important. Charlie, yeah, I mean, he was beaten by a really good opponent. Like, Stephen May's an amazing defender. His body work is super. Charlie got up the ground, took a couple of marks here and there, kicked a goal. I mean, he hasn't had a stinker, but by his standards, yeah, he's probably not in the best nick at the moment. Chikotta, I actually liked his game. He's only had 8, but went back with a fly to the ball there. I think it was in the 3rd quarter and nearly killed himself. Their smalls were busy. Spargo, Pickett, got a hold of him at times, but he's just playing his role at the moment. They're super dangerous small forwards who, are very, very hard to stop. And he's just playing his role. Saad, the same. Like he picked up his 24. Had some times where he was caught behind. I think Pickett there let him out of the goal square when they put Pickett forward. But he was super important with his run. Only 387 metres gained, so probably didn't have the penetration by foot, but was really good. Owies had he had a stinker, but that goal late was typical Matt Owies. But just some of his ball use early, like, fuck. yeah. And Cottrell, not as good as he was the week before, but yeah, he played, he was thereabouts. Anyway, guys, that's it now. That is a 30-minute review of something which should have been done on Saturday or Sunday. Speak soon.